Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, thanks for joining us. This week is a little different video because I'm flying solo. And unfortunately, Shauna had to fly back to Arizona to be with her mother, who is gravely ill. So if you could send your thoughts and well wishes to us so that we can send those on to Shauna's mother. We wanted to share some of the unexpected expenses that we've had in the last month or so and give you an idea about how much you really should think about putting away in an emergency fund for things that might come up that you haven't planned. Now, we had three major things come up this last month, and one was, I guess you could say, totally avoidable. It's a huge mistake on my part. And the other two, not so avoidable. And so we'll talk about those. The first big thing, again, like I said, my mistake, it has to do with our taxes. Now, I typically do our taxes every year. A couple of years I've sent them off to a CPA, but most of the time we do taxes ourselves. And we use one of the tax software programs that you can find anywhere. Well, in 2017, I did just that, and we got a letter from the IRS about 4 weeks ago or so, informing us that we had an error on our 2017 taxes. Now, the error was, again, my fault. We had some securities sales that I forgot to include on our tax return. Not intentional, I just spaced it, forgot to include them. And so since 2017, it would have been nice if the IRS contacted us sooner to reduce some of those interest and penalty charges. Anyway, that was to the tune of about $13,000, which included the error that I made, taxes, penalties, failure to file, which I don't get, but anyway. Luckily, we've been able to mitigate that. I did call the IRS and I spoke to a very nice representative there who kind of walked me through the error, and she was able to fix some of the stuff right there on the fly on the phone, which was awesome. So that really reduced our amount due significantly from about, again, $13,000 to about $9,000. Anyway. That's a tax liability that we have to pay that was absolutely unexpected. So it's the things like this that you really can't plan for. I had no idea that we were going to get hit with this huge tax bill. One of those things. Would have happened if we were still living in a house. So anyway, we have to deal with it. The next couple of things were not so avoidable. And again, I talked earlier about Shauna's mother, who has been ill for the last while. And unfortunately, it's kind of gotten a little bit worse, so Shauna had to fly home unexpectedly. We kind of got the call about a week or so ago, knowing that she needed to go home. And then, so last Sunday, she flew out. And of course, anybody who has purchased last-minute tickets like that know that they're super expensive, and this was the case for us. Round-trip ticket was, I think, about $1,400. So again, that's one of those unexpected expenses. That leads to the last and final, somewhat large expense, not necessarily a large expense, but an unplanned one. Any of you who have pets know that sometimes things happen to pets and you need to rush them to a vet to find out what's happening. And we have two French Bulldogs, Ricky and Lucy, and those who have French Bulldogs know that they can be expensive to keep healthy. Ours are not too bad. They have cost us a good chunk every now and then. And this was a particular case with Ricky. We were in the Black Hills about a month or so ago, and I was taking Ricky out for a walk, and there were wild mushrooms all over the place. Some of those is hard to tell if they're poisonous or not. Most of them do have an effect on dogs, and Ricky was walking and she reached down and snatched one up and gobbled it down really quickly. So we were kind of anticipating something to happen. So it was about, I don't know, a few hours later, she got really, really ill, vomiting, and sort of, I don't know if she was hallucinating or what, but she certainly was not herself. So that lasted for a few hours, 3 or 4 hours, I think. And then she kind of snapped out of it and was back to her normal self. But just vomiting, profuse salivation and things. So obviously that mushroom was not good for her. And then we noticed a day or so later she had a huge welt on one of her hindquarters. And we thought, wow, maybe a mosquito or a tick or something. But she kind of snapped out of that too, with no real effect of that bite. Well, here a few days ago, she got really ill again. Totally lethargic, didn't want to do anything but lay down and sleep. Was not her total self. She'd go on a walk, she ate fine, she pooped and peed fine, and all that stuff was just like a normal dog. She didn't lose any of that sort of appetite or anything. She just wanted to lay around, totally lethargic and listless. So we were thinking, wow, maybe there's some effect of those issues we experienced in the Badlands with her. Either the mushroom has kind of come back to haunt her, or that bite was something like a tick, and now she has Lyme disease or something like that. So we said we have to get her to a vet, and we're visiting our parents here in Indiana, and in a small town they have 3 vets here. So we called one up. We were able to get her in the next day. And again, that whole next day of her appointment, the morning she was kind of lethargic and listless, not as bad as the 2 previous days, but still, not herself. The appointment was at 2:30. Early in the afternoon, she kind of snapped back and was more of herself, kind of very energetic and playful and all those things. So we took her to the vet anyway. And the vet checked her over, made sure she didn't have any, issues with bones or injuries or things like that. All that was normal. And we said, let's go ahead and do a blood test, because we're kind of concerned that maybe that bite she had on her hindquarter was a tick or something, and maybe she's got some illness now. Ran all the blood tests, heartworms, all of that stuff. Came back totally normal. We have both dogs on heartworm prevention and flea and tick prevention too, so we were kind of sure that wasn't the issue. But anyway, I wanted to run some tests to rule all that out. That bill was about $200. Again, somewhat unexpected, and just kind of added on to the other big expenses we've had here in the last month or so. And so that kind of leads into a very important topic, and that is financial planning. And just because you're out on the road full-time living doesn't mean you should have some sort of emergency fund or financial plan in place that helps you in case you have one of these situations arise. Most financial planners will recommend a minimum of 3 months in a reserve account for such things. Basic rule of thumb for an emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses. An example would be if you spend $1,000 a month in your monthly expenses, have at least $3,000 to $6,000. Another important consideration to make in terms of how much you have in your emergency fund is really what kind of RV you live in. And we don't often think about that, but there are some RVs that are more expensive to maintain than others. Generally speaking, the older the rig, the more it's going to cost to maintain it. Because most newer rigs, 3 years or 4 years old, if you have an extended warranty, that's one thing, or some are still covered under the manufacturer's warranty. But ours is a 2008, so we know that, and we have no warranty on it by essentially self-insure, because I'm pretty handy and I can fix most things. That said, there's some big things that go wrong that we have to plan for. I mean, if an engine goes out, that's $10,000, $15,000 easy. Chances of that happening are pretty rare. But anyway, you have to make considerations on the type of equipment you have and how much you put away. The newer Class Bs and Class Cs and smaller vans are going to cost a little less to maintain. So again, depending on what type of rig you have, you should consider how much you put away to maintain that sort of rig. And then pets. If you have pets, obviously, you're going to have some issues there. So always have some emergency funds put away for pets. And then also for your own care if something were to happen. If you don't have health insurance, then obviously you're going to need to put away some more money in your emergency fund to accommodate for injuries or things like that. We do have health insurance, And fortunately, we're both pretty healthy and haven't had any issues yet, but you never know. So all this said, it really boils down to the level of risk you're willing to assume and how much you decide to put away in your emergency fund. Again, we put away about 12 months in our reserve account for emergencies and things that come up, and we highly encourage you to do the same. Well, that about wraps it up for this short video. Again, if all of you would please send your well wishes and thoughts over to us so we can pass those along to Shauna's mother. And I think that's a wrap. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing. Hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified when our content comes out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.